Hey, this is Villain with the Villain Report. I wanted to share my perspective and what I saw and what I heard about as to the shooting that happened in CHAZ CHOP on June 28th and 29th, the night of Sunday, early Monday morning. So first I'm going to go into why I was up at CHAZ. So about a month ago when the riots first started breaking out in Portland, I had a feeling that they were going to break out on that I think it was a Saturday, the 29th. So I went downtown to kind of keep an eye on it, see what was going on, see what was going to happen. That was the night that it was actually a riot. They broke into the Pioneer Square Mall, looted Louis Vuitton and some other stores. They broke into Target. Target kept boarding their building up, and they kept breaking into it every night. But poor Target. So I started doing my own citizen journaling and documenting the riots and the protests and the tear gassing and all that kind of stuff. And what I started noticing is that the mainstream media was kind of skewing things, and it was not matching the perspective I was having on the ground, like right there in person, and it was kind of frustrating me. And also, a lot of the independent journalists I saw, their media, they were, in my perspective, provoking situations to happen to make them look like the police were aggressing on them, or editing their video to make things look more aggressive than they were. And so I started wanting to have just make a more honest voice and just give a non-sensational, honest voice of what was happening. I tried to do that. Obviously, it's pretty hard to get rid of all your biases. Anyways, I started doing that, and then I started getting really more and more frustrated with the media. People were sending me clips from people like Tucker Carlson on the right and John Oliver on the left, and they were just both extremely ridiculous and exaggerative of the reports they were giving. Especially, they started talking about CHAZ, and they said up in Seattle that there was a warlord, Ras Simone, and that he was constantly walking around with an AK, and that accosting people, and that they were extorting businesses in order for them to run, kind of mafia style. There was claims that all the barriers had checkpoints with assault rifle type weapons, and that you had to go through them. They had to pat you down, and you had to show your ID before you can go in. So I decided to go up to CHAZ and see it for myself. So 2 weeks ago, I went up on a Sunday. I was just planning on spending the afternoon there and checking it out. I didn't know what I was going to get, and so I was kind of anxious, excited, nervous. So I get there and I drive around the perimeter a little bit, and I don't see too much sketch. There are barriers. There were people standing there guard, but I saw people coming and going. And I parked and I walked into CHAZ, and I had no problem there. You didn't even interact with people at the barriers. They definitely didn't frisk you, and definitely didn't pick your ID. It wasn't until I actually ended up staying there 4 days instead of just that one day. I ended up volunteering at the what they call the No-Out Co-op. I did that just because I wanted to get around people, and I wanted to see what they were doing, and I wanted to see what they were thinking, and I wanted to help out and be part of it, and not necessarily for the movement, but just to be involved in those people's activities, and get to know them and get to know the vibe and the atmosphere that was going on there. And I got to. By about the fourth day, so I got there on Sunday. Monday morning, the city came in and moved they moved all the barricades, and they put concrete barricades down. I think that might have been Tuesday, if I'm mistaken. And then the next day, they came in and they encroached the barriers a little bit more. And they also started sending people in, like the health inspector, to put pressure on the people that were running free kitchens and free grocery stores, and trying to make them, I guess, feel pressure again in order to meet these health requirements. And the combination of those things and just the time that was going on in CHAZ, I think started putting a little bit of stress on people. Individuals started bickering with each other more. The differing groups started bickering and fighting with each other even more. I think it was Tuesday night, 2 weeks ago, that there were factions in the grocery store, in the kitchen area there at 12th and Pine, that were kind of forming mutinies, and we're trying to decide who's going to take over and who's going to stay in charge. and the kitchen was going to separate from the co-op, and the co-op was going to they eventually kicked the woman that was leading it out and took it over. But in the middle of the night, that woman tried to prevent that from happening. She had a whole mob of people come and actually move everything from 12th and Pine, just a block away, to 12th and Pike. It took hours and hours for everybody to move it there. But by the end of that night, I believe, like, those awnings started getting torn down, and things started getting destroyed. People were fighting. There was definitely a lot of chaos going on. And I decided to leave the next day because not just that, but just the whole vibe of the place started feeling like the tension was palpable and that something was going to happen. 2 days later was the double shooting that happened. So I left then, and then I came back this week, and I came back on Saturday. I stayed Saturday, Sunday. I left Monday morning, and that was my plan. I was coming because the city had declared that they were going to move in CHOP and remove the barriers on Sunday morning. Sunday morning came around, there was a bunch of news reporters there. Everybody was waiting, and the city never came. There was one city Department of Transportation of Seattle employee that came and randomly removed a bike rack. He took the threaded rods out of the concrete and replaced them and put the bike rack back. I don't think it needed any replacement. One of the filmers was making the joke that it was the most interesting watched replacement of a bike rack ever. But I think he was there to gauge the crowd's response to a city worker being there and see what happened. So anyways, so we get to Sunday night, the night of the shooting. So first thing I'll note, from the week and a half that I had left CHAZ and come back, I had noticed it was significantly degenerated. There were far, far less people there, and people seemed to lower spirits overall, and people were fighting more. It seemed less safe, especially at night. Saturday night when I slept, I heard nothing but fighting and horrible sounds all night long. Some pretty brutal fights, it sounded like. So Sunday came around. Once the sun went down Sunday, I'll start with my videos that are clips I'm going to add to this. A fight broke out. There was a mentally ill man that was messing around with the George Floyd memorial on 12th in between Pine and Pike. I guess he was smashing glasses or something, but another couple guys did not like that at all, so they were beating him up. They separated the fight, and the mentally ill man actually was asking them to keep punching him. I think he asked him to spit on him and stuff, and he was taken away, and finally they let him go once they didn't think he was going to come back, and he ended up coming back and got beat up a little bit more. After that, I think that happened a little after 11, probably about half an hour after that, the security goes running out to the ball field because somebody was pulling knives out. And apparently there was one individual that's been doing that recently, and they knew him, and he's just been causing a lot of problems. I think he's the person we'll talk about later that was menacing through the neighborhood in the golden town car, Mercedes Lexus kind of car. So the knife thing happened, and then later on in the night, I interviewed a guy, and I found out that there was another assault up in the north part of Cal Andrews Park. An altercation happened. A man shot a few single shots into the air, and then he also assaulted pretty badly, beat up a woman and beat up a man. There's a clip of that interview coming up in this video. And then after that, I was actually interviewing a friend of mine about some transgender issues having nothing to do with the protest, really. And that interview was interrupted by there was a shot, and then immediately I think there was 11 shots, and then a moment later there was another 5 shots. Yes, I think I say clip several times. Yeah, gun people, magazine. Okay, cool. But so at that point, start gauging the situation, see how far I can push my safety. And so I walk up to the ball field, and at that time, many armed men were starting to openly carry their guns and have them in their hands, and people were searching for the shooters to try to figure out what was going on. It seemed like a lot of chaos, and nobody really knew what was happening. So then we'll march up to, I guess that's 11th and Olive there, right by that church, and there's cars driving all around, and there's a couple of cars that are menacing. We'll hear about a white Jeep or a white SUV. That ended up being the SUV that the two young men that were shot in were driving around. I hear reports that it was stolen. And then there's also the gold town car that was driving around menacing. The gold town car would speed up and act like they were going to charge the boundaries of CHAZ, but then they turn off at the last minute and not actually run into anybody or drive into the area. And then there was other cars that were just driving around, friendlies or part of the CHAZ, or I don't know. And every time someone saw a car, it was kind of paranoia. So then I walk through the park and I start gathering stories, and I hear a couple outliers, but mostly everybody's saying they hear things from two places or both places. On Nagel Street, which is west of the park, running north and south, I hear that a vehicle sounds like it started at the north end and driving south, and they first fired that 1 and then 11 shots up at the north end, I think, and then they drive down towards the ball field a little further, and they pop off another, I think, 5 shots. And that's when everybody starts freaking out, and then everything starts from there. So that's what it sounds like. And originally people were saying there was a blue SUV, and then now that I've ran through everything, I do remember seeing a blue SUV. It's a really big one, like a newer, nicer vehicle. And I think that might have been, I'm not sure who that was. I was going to say I think it might have been part of CHAZ security, but it might have been, it was a pretty big guy. There's also a guy that's been being talked about in all this, and I think someone said he went to jail. There's a Samoan guy named Tiny, who was supposedly a Proud Boy. Some people say he was a sex trafficker. I don't really know all about that. Anyways, so walking through the park, and we hear all these gunshots every once in a while. There's just cars driving around the boundary. We don't know who's good cars, who's the bad cars. We don't even know if people are walking around in CHAZ shooting. Nobody really knows what's going on, but everybody's freaked out. People start grabbing all kinds of weapons. I saw a man carrying a hatchet in his hand. I saw another guy carrying a pickaxe, and later in the night, it turned out that somebody actually got attacked with a pickaxe, and they went to the hospital. So during the lull, where things weren't so intense, I walked up to the northwest corner of Cal Andrews Park, and there was a bunch of, I think there were business owners of the area there, hanging out at that construction area there to kind of walk, and I talked to them, and I confirmed that that car that was originally said to be driving down Nagel and shooting rounds off into the air actually smashed into or careened into the side of a blue Prius. Those people, one of them was the owner, and he had moved it off that street. My point was going over there, I was going to walk down that street and try to find shells and see what kind of gun it was, or if there were shells, and if they were all in one spot, or just to see some evidence, see if I can gather some information. I couldn't find that because more tension happened in the middle of that. I think people started towards over 10th and Pine. I think there's started to be some altercation, maybe some gunfire, maybe even some gun exchange. Everybody was running and laying on the ground. I walked through the park, interviewed a couple more people, trying to figure out what's going on, and then I end back up in that same area of kind of, if you extend Olive through the park to Nagel, kind of in between the ball field and the park on Nagel, I was there and I saw what I think was the white Jeep, the white SUV, over on Pine, squealing out and You know, when things are that intense for that long, your adrenaline's going, it's kind of hard. Like I've questioned my memory on a lot of things. So pretty sure that that was the white Jeep. Could have been another white or silver SUV, but I'm pretty sure that that was the one. And I think some of the security footage that I've seen matches that timeline up. So once I see that, there's also sounds like an exchange. And the reason why I think it was an exchange of gunfire right there is because there's several times throughout the night where somebody was just letting off a consistently paced time of bullets. And talked to police officers, and they said that was probably an AR from hearing the audio of it, and it was firing semi-automatic consistently. Well, when I thought I was hearing an exchange, the firing rate was faster and inconsistent, and so it sounded like two separate guns were firing at different rates at the same time. About that time is when the clip in the video, you'll see I'm following a couple of armed men, one with an assault rifle, and we turn south into the park and we start running towards the precinct. And then we get up to the precinct, and before we get to the precinct, you hear another big round of shots. That's why everybody starts running to the precinct. And I think those were the shots of the barrage of shots that went into the Jeep and shot the young boys. One was 14 and one is 16. It's very sad. Apparently they stole that car too. Not to diminish the tragedy of their death for whatever reason it was, but the details matter. So I get up there and there's plenty of armed men. I've seen a lot of people on Twitter today talking about certain conspiracy theories that, not necessarily conspiracy, everybody's trying to figure it out. So they're talking about like nobody's saying there was a smell of gunpowder or smoke, that there was no shells laying around the car, that the windows were rolled up. I don't know what to think about all of that. I think there is video footage. I'll try to add it at the end of the video of, it's not very good because the car in the back is kind of obscured, but you can hear and you can kind of see that Jeep driving very fastly through that barricade on 12th towards Pine from Pike, and a whole lot of gunfire. What's really, I'll leave that to the end of the video. So now I'm just going to jump into the videos and enjoy. Tell me what you think. Give me your ideas. Remember to think for yourself. You're capable of it. Put the ideas together. Put the details together. Share your information with people. And don't let people tell you what to think. Don't let the mainstream media craft a narrative for you that when you know it's nonsense. Like the warlord chat, Raz Simone. Seen some, in the last day, I've seen some weird videos with him. One where he's giving a clearly incapable young man, just randomly gives him an AK out of the or an assault rifle, a semi-automatic rifle, tactical type. I know you gun guys are going to come for me with my terminology, but gives this young man this gun and just hands it to him. And the young man's fiddling with it, and people are standing next to him getting scared that he's just going to actually pull the trigger. But I don't know. I met Raz. He was actually the one that drove the car that I was in to the hospital with the young man that we were transporting. My interaction with him was pretty good. That video I saw was pretty sketchy, so I don't know. I'll have to hear what you guys think about him. Maybe you guys can give me some videos of him and tell me why people are demonizing him so much, because the story the mainstream media made out about him did not match up what I saw in CHOP and what I saw when I met Raz. So we'll see. So check these videos out. Look at the experience I had.
This is a memorial. You're disrespecting George Floyd. Why? Put that down. Watch out, you got that? Hey, stop. You little boy. Shorty, chill. Shorty. Oh, Shorty. Boy. Shorty, Get out my way, nigga. What is going on?
How old are you, sir? 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 Spit on me. How old are you, sir?
Come on,
Spit on
he's
me.
obviously
We're here to
crazy.
keep the peace. We're here to keep the peace.
All you niggas, don't give a
We're here to keep the peace.
I'm the peace.
I'm sober right now. Keep the peace. Spit on me.
He wants you to beat him up. He's obviously crazy, man. You can't beat him up.
What you gonna do, nigga?
You better back up.
What you gonna do, nigga?
You better back up.
What you gonna do,
You
nigga?
better back up.
Let's
You better back
de-escalate it,
up.
man. Neither one of you
better
want to
back
fight
up.
each other, you know?
That's what I
It's a
thought.
little tense right now.
Get your old ass. Take your old ass somewhere. Stop beating on
No,
innocent people.
no, he's leaving.
Stop
He's
beating
leaving.
on innocent handicapped people.
Let him have an out, man.
Get your old ass.
Let him have an out. Let him have an out. Let him
But this is the one you didn't want.
Common with liberals, and a lot of them are very, very unconnected to each other. That's not a firework.
For fuck's sake.
Everybody, it doesn't look like everybody's running off. There's some people running.
People are running to it. Security is running to it. It didn't happen there. It would have happened down there. No, that's definitely down there, right?
Got a friend. Good dog. I'll always love you. Oh, traffic control. I mean, all lights red. All lights red. Don't know traffic. All lights red.
So I'm here in CHOP. It's crazy as hell right now. I just heard 2 full clips of gunfire go off. Everybody's running around. Nobody knows really what's going on. These guys behind me dress up like Power Rangers. Can't really see them too well. You see those guys dressed up like Power Rangers? What's up with that?
Oh, they're medic.
That's freaky. Oh crap, that's scotch.
Just so you know. Security team was inciting all of them.
You guys see the gunshots? Was that just a second ago? Was that another shot? There's still gunshots going off. Nobody knows where it's coming from. Nobody knows who's doing it.
A crew that came by causing shit, protecting a predator, and they were stealing shit, and they tried to hit me twice with their car, and they hit the car. I don't know if that car's still here. It might have been this car.
Yeah.
It was a little Prius that got its light smashed. So
They clipped
they're
it with
trying to
another
kill
vehicle?
us. Yeah, they tried to kill us. And then there was a shooting, which is probably the same shit. They probably called a crew, come by and do a drive-by.
You mean the gang's in the area?
That gang, that clique, that group specifically, that crew.
Did you see anybody shooting?
No, but I heard the shooting coming from there and then there. So they probably, that's like usually route, that's where we got our drive-by before. So that route is like where drive-bys can happen easily.
When did a drive-by happen?
Like a week ago.
There's an active shooter in CHOP right now. Here we have a man that says he saw the gunfire here at CHAZ tonight. CHOP, what'd you see?
Yeah, not CHAZ. Basically, it started with some people doing donuts, and then a car followed them, and they got out, and they said they got a gun pulled on them, and so they're feeling hot, at which point he pulled out his butterfly knife and started walking towards me and told us all to leave. The guy that I was with, who is also reporting, writing a book, he pulled out his phone and started filming, at which point I think the gold car that we've been seeing the whole time, they drove up too, and somebody from them said, stop filming, and started approaching him, beat the fuck out of him, and then they mugged him and stole his shit.
We had a car coming, let's step off this side.
And then after that, just people came in to the center.
We got a car coming on the stoplight. Find cover.
Yeah, so somebody went in with a tire iron, somebody else went in with a gun. He fired a warning shot. He warned everybody, I'm gonna fire a warning shot. They fired.
What'd he look like? Give me a description of him.
He's part of here. He's
Okay,
just a
okay,
white guy. But
okay.
they lit off the people who have been causing problems that some people say are Proud Boys, but they were black, so that's confusing to me.
Okay.
They threw some fireworks out, like some M80 type fireworks twice. Somebody fired a warning shot. Somebody shot a gun, and they beat the fuck out of one girl and a guy. I took the guy to Dick's, the burger place, to clean him up.
This all happened during this shooting event tonight?
Yeah, just tonight. Yeah, and it was multiple groups. So there was one group of people, the Native American group, that was doing just the donuts. They weren't doing anything wrong. They had a BMW, silver BMW, and then there was a black Escalade looking, or Chevy, and then there was the tan, I don't know, like.
So I heard at least twice, like a whole clip get dumped, and maybe a third time.
Yeah, I think there were other events.
Did you see that?
No, I just saw the one shot and then the one warning shot.
So did you say 2 girls got beat up?
One girl got beat up, one guy got beat up. Yep. You can talk to her. She's in the camp that's over there with the van. That's at the Native American group.
Okay.
And then the other guy.
You saw them get beat up?
I saw her get beat up. Yeah, it was a whole. I mean,
how bad was it? Like, was she like injured, or was it just?
She was talking, but yeah, she had like cuts and stuff all on her face. The other guy had his like eyelid split out, is like flayed out, and they beat the fuck out of him. And the security took him to the hospital. I'm pretty sure that's the last time I saw him.
What popped all that off? Were they drinking
drugs?
Dude,
that's the craziest part. So the people say that it's been the same, antagonizing group from other nights that drive out onto this field, that drive up there. It's that same car that keeps driving around here.
That gold town car looking thing?
Yeah, exactly. And so they're the ones that started it. So, yeah.
Chill out. That was the AR, nigga. Y'all, bro. I'm being real, bro. We're with it. We're with it. That was the AR, nigga. We're with it. You guys gotta split up, bro. We're with it. We're with it.
If you want to be safe, head to the precinct. Go to the precinct. Go to the precinct. Last warning. Go to the precinct. If you want to be safe, go to the precinct. These wild people in here, they let them know that. We have active shooters out here. You hear that? Go, version. It's a go! It's a go!
Go ahead. Fuck, there is a lot of shooting going on right now. There's a car, a white SUV driving around the perimeter of CHAZ, just popping off shots.
So far, as far as I know, nobody's been wounded or shot.
Hey, we good? Are we good?
Bucket thing.
Are there any wounded?
Yeah, we do have that. Just.
Where are they? Yep. Now. Does this car run? We need to throw these guys in a car and go to the hospital now.
What are we doing? Get him to a hospital. Hey, we gotta get him to the Ferrari dealership. Trust me, I know.
Now we need to fucking get them to Sweden.
Are these the shooters?
Hop in my car. Hey,
What happens in the car?
bring him in my car. We gotta move.
This is the white SUV that was circling CHAZ. The shooters, or the believed to be people, they're injured. Is this car safe? Is this car safe? You gonna take him to the hospital?
Tell me where to go and I'll go.
All right, pull
I
up
got
here.
my car right there. Which one?
Keep pull. This one's in front. Let's take this one. Pull this up further to the body. All right.
I got you. Where's the key? Is it in there? I'll grab it.
All right, we got a car coming up. We're gonna put the victims in the car.
Back up, clear the street.
Hold on, you guys. We got a car. We got two cars. Get out of the street. Get out of the street. Get out of the street. Let's go home. Everybody, calm down.
Stop yelling.
All right, you guys. This body goes to the SUV right here. This body to the white car here.
Gotta go first.
Come up here. Come up. Get as close as you can.
How much do you want to
All right, there's no IV supplies here. Get them in the car and let's go. All right, we're ready here for one of them.
Emergency move ready?
Move them and do this stuff in the car.
Alright, so that's the end of the video footage. Where it ends is me and 4 other people get in the car with the younger man. I believe he's 14 years old, and we drove him as fast as we could to Harborview Medical, to the ER. We got him in the ambulance. He was conscious and breathing with 3 gunshot wounds, one to his bicep, one to his thigh or hip, and one to his left temple. He was conscious and he was talking a little bit, but it was incoherent. He was in an altered state of consciousness, obviously, for that circumstance. We got to the hospital. There was maybe half a dozen or more police geared up with assault rifles and pointing them at the car, which is reasonable. CHAZ is an anarchist place, and things like this happen there, so they don't want it spread out into the rest of the community or into the hospital. I guess recently they had some kind of injury event or something from CHAZ that went to the hospital, and a bunch of people with long rifles showed up at the hospital. So it's reasonable. But Raz Simone was driving the car, and we get to the intersection right outside the ER, and they've got the rifles trained at us. So he stops and just puts his hands up and won't move, and that's reasonable. He's scared, you know. And so I get my hands out the window and I step out of the car and I yell, "There's no weapons. We've got a critical person. We need to get to the ER." And I try to get Raz to move forward, but he's just staying in place, and reasonably, there's a bunch of rifles trained on him. And so there's a security guard from the hospital, and I went and grabbed the gurney from him, and I think he ended up coming out. I'm not sure if I took it the whole way myself to the car or if he helped a little bit, but everybody was a little sketched out in that situation. And so the girl and the young man that was in the back of the car with me were carrying the body out a couple feet away from the car to the gurney, and I went up and grabbed and helped. We got him to the door of the ER, and police made it very clear for us to stop there, which is understandable. We spent several hours out there with the police and going through all that kind of stuff. So I want to point out, I'm going to try to put a link. I'll put several links in the description. I'm going to put the link to the full fight at the beginning that I talked about with the mental ill man. There's a clip that you saw. I'm going to put the full link to that. I'm going to put the full link to the conversation with that young white guy that was explaining that altercation of the assaults and the single gunshots before the actual shooter situation started really happening. And I'm going to try to put a link to not my video, but there's some security footage, it looks like, of the CHAZ area. And it shows the white SUV. Some people have been claiming that the white Jeep was actually just parked there, and that maybe even the boys weren't even inside it. But they were definitely, there's footage that shows them squealing around the corner and squealing up to the barricade. And then there's a whole bunch of gunfire you hear. The vehicle is kind of in the back of the video, and there's trees, and I think it's a legitimate source to claim that vehicle was not parked there, like some people are claiming. As to the smell of gun smoke, you know, I didn't smell any gunpowder and gun smoke, but that was a very wide open place. There was a lot of people moving around there. I think it had been several minutes since that gunfire exchange went off, so. I don't buy that too much. One thing I have taken from people's comments is that it looks like at least the passenger side window is up. I don't know if the driver's side window is up. I can't see too many clear pictures of that. But one thing is for sure is that Jeep was driving around CHAZ for a while during and speeding and menacing and playing a cat and mouse game, and the gold town car kind of thing was doing the same thing. And there were several vehicles that were driving around, and we all had a hard time knowing whose were good and whose were gonna possibly cause harm to us. So the white Jeep was definitely playing cat and mouse around the neighborhood. I didn't actually ever see them exchange shooting out their window or anything like that. I did see them at 10th and Pine at the same time that a gunfire exchange happened, so I think that they were shooting. People mentioned that there were no guns or shells at the scene, and I got there pretty quick, but there was also a lot of people there, and there also weren't any, I didn't see any gunmen. You see in the video where I'm walking up around the corner, and there's the guy with the AK coming on beside me. I'm filming him, and there's the guy in the battle scooter that lights up. That guy's just scooting into the war zone. But when you get there, there's nobody else with guns there. So whoever did shoot either stashed them real quick or got the heck out of there. And they might have taken the other guns. I don't know. I don't know about that. You know, we'll have to find that out. Maybe we won't find that out. But I do know that I'm sorry that those boys had to suffer the way that they did. And I'm not saying that they're completely innocent of their actions. I mean, when you're doing things like stealing cars and driving around in gunfire zones, and dangerous things happen, you know? That's not the best choices, but they're still so young. 14 years old and 16 years old. I hope the one we took to the hospital, the 16-year-old boy died. That's another thing. I got reports while I was at the hospital from people that were speaking in CHAZ that had known people, and people were looking for people, and people were missing. So it's confirmed that one guy got hit by the axe. There's a 16-year-old that died. He had 6 gunshot wounds. And there's the 14-year-old that is in very critical condition, as last I heard. But I originally heard that there was 6 people total that had critical injuries. All I'm seeing in the news and everything is that there's the 2 boys that got the gunshot wound, and then the pickaxe guy. So I'm not sure if people did get injured and they're hiding that, or if that was just rumor and hysteria in that reasonably hysterical moment. Anyways, thanks for checking my stuff out. Criticize me, critique me, tell me I'm trying to figure out how to do this. I know this is a really long video, 19 minutes plus 7 minutes plus however long the video footage was. So let me know. I'll try to make it better. My goal is to do 2 things: to create information that's unbiased as I can, and not to put a spin on things, give you guys the information to make up your own minds, and to do that for myself. I'm seeking that to myself, and I'd like to just hand it on to you on the things that I find. But also, I want to create a dialogue between the right and the left, between opposing viewpoints. I think we need to talk more, because I don't think we actually disagree so vehemently as we hatefully think. I think we're just looking at a lot of things from the other side of the fence, and we can get along more and not have this divided country if we talked a lot more. And I don't want to see things like the chaos we're seeing in CHAZ. Final point, the is CHAZ peaceful, is CHAZ dangerous argument. CHAZ is somewhat peaceful in the daytime usually, especially in the weekdays. There's always, seems to me, whenever I'm there, a potential. There's a lot of pressure and tension for something to just pop off any moment in the wrong way. And then once the sun goes down, man, CHAZ gets a little crazy. And the longer CHAZ has been going on, CHOP, whatever you want to call it, the sketchier it is. Like the first night, Saturday night that I came back to CHAZ this week and slept in my tent, it's creepy, man. So many people fighting, so many people having serious, obvious verbal, mental issues amongst themselves, and just screaming out and just talking to themselves. And it seemed like maybe some people were getting abused, but yeah, CHAZ is not safe at night. So tell you it's peaceful and safe. Maybe they're talking about like the happy hour or something, but not in general. There's a lot of violence that happens there, and any reasonable person can't make that excuse. It's not a safe place, especially at night. Once that sun goes down, CHAZ gets weird. All right, villain report out. Just kidding. So that note in that last shot they heard in the video that I present, and I said, remember that shot? So in that video footage I talked about that I'm gonna link to, of the white Jeep coming into the barricade and then the shots happen. If you listen to the audio there, they say, oh, they're something like, I'm paraphrasing right now, I don't have it written down in front of me, but oh, they're dead. And then something like, oh, you're not dead yet? And then, do you want to get pistol whipped? And then you hear one more shot. And if you look at my video, you hear that last barrage of shots when we're running through the park towards the precinct. You don't hear more shots. And then when I'm coming up next to the AK-47 guy, coming up to make the corner around the precinct, you hear that last shot. A lot of people, I think, are reasonably making the conclusion that that was an attempt to execute that guy. Both of the guys were still technically alive when everybody was doing the EMS first aid stuff on them. We didn't have the equipment to do even extensive BLS treatments. I don't think there were any actual paramedics there after I talked. There might have been, I'm not sure. They didn't have any paramedic equipment. But anyways, that dialogue in that last pop in that video is pretty creepy. I don't know who did that, but it's pretty creepy. Going out.